Welcome back to Design Bing Bong. We are back with more good design portfolios and amazing work. Yeah. We're back here with more good work to show you. Stay tuned, keep your eyes open. I am starting today with Tauba Auerbach. So they are an artist from San Francisco. I first saw their work at the SF MoMA. Fine artist from San Francisco, American. I was really blown away when I saw the show back in 2018 because it was this medium of graphic design, but in the context of a gallery and in the context of a museum presented as like fine art pieces. They are a fine artist with a graphical background, I would say, like light on the design and heavier on the art. I just wanted to show some of the roots and the early work. They were an apprentice at the sign painting shop. They did a lot of lettering. You know, there was this piece at the show that was like this F that was like a hand-painted calligraphic poster. Not something I would be blown away with if I saw it nowadays, but I think in the context of everything, it really makes sense to see the roots of their kind of foundational artistic practice. Yeah, this is them, you know, painting their name at the show. And I wanted to show some of the early kind of album design work that they did with collaboration with friends, textures and abstract patterning. There's no type on this. It's not like, doesn't feel like design. It's just sort of art that's like packaged over a product. These were some other ones, you know, kind of reminiscent of Paris, typographic, lettered, inspired abstract patterns. They might say something, they might not, but it just looks really cool in that context.
Yeah, I love the idea of like alluding to letters, but not being letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, you know, at the core, it's like really, you know, how they practice their craft with this hand calligraphy and how that extends into like a broader, more abstract way of working. And then these are some more like, you know, standalone pieces, like really meditative. You can imagine her painting these letter shapes, you know, really abstract, like in a meditative way.
Yeah, the one on the left reminds me of something we shared on Discord where there was like a whole expose of a Russian script and doctors' handwriting specifically when they're filling out prescriptions. It like literally looks unintelligible in the same way as this on the left, and there's something really nice about that.
Yeah, except the doctor's like trying to say something with their handwriting, but in this case, they're like almost saying nothing.
It's like the same letter form over and over again, but it's slightly different as it goes through, and you could see the human, like, not like degrading of quality, but just maybe her hand's getting a little tired for some of the letters, and there's like subtle quirky differences, but if you like zoom out, you wouldn't be able to know. It would almost be like a typeface, like perfect.
A bit of an interesting anecdote, they studied mathematics and like logic in college, and I think that kind of shows through in the geometry and the patterning and sort of this like mathematical grid system of like repetition, and then how that human element, the hand, like you're saying, kind of degrades the work in a really organic, artistic way. These were kind of like print, you know, you can kind of imagine someone taking a picture, like editing that in Photoshop. This is actually done in acrylic paint, airbrushed or hand painted. You can see that work in action. You know, it's actually really large, and these are all like dot patterns that make up these abstract textural images. It's more kind of macro. You can't really figure out what this is. If you zoomed into like a molecule or something, it's very like mathematical, fractal inspired painted dots.
Yeah.
It's like almost pointillism, but it's so small. It's almost to the point of like when a printer prints, it's technically really tiny pointillism.
Yeah.
But it just blends in. So I don't know if that's done by hand, but that is like crazy fine detail.
Like everything looks almost like it could have just been like a photo that was put into Photoshop.
Yeah.
But it's all painted. That's crazy.
I think there's also like an interesting conversation there with the dot patterns being so small and like almost molecular. And then the entire image is also like of a molecule or something, like something zoomed in. These are woven canvas pieces. Again, like you can imagine doing this in Illustrator, you know, with vectors, with graphic shapes, but then thinking about how they like wove these strips of canvas together to create this geometric pattern, and it's really tactile as well.
I'm not a weaver, but I imagine that takes incredible attention to detail to get such crisp lines and like mathematically knowing when to like flip and switch to the different colors like so precisely. It looks crazy cool.
Yeah, definitely OCD on display.
Yeah, these are again like more like kind of digital textures, patterns that are translated into a real like a physical medium. And then they were also like an apprentice at a marbling ink transfer design shop for book jackets. They learned this technique of like taking, marbled ink and transferring that onto paper to create these really cool abstract patterns. What I really admire about this artist is that they learn a lot of different things, from physical mediums to digital design to even sculpture. This was a commission that they did. It was an installation for a physical space, very artistic, not like a design with like big letters or like, it's not an ad, it's a piece of artwork.
I just want to say that ladder looks extremely dangerous on the right. Oh my God, they painted a boat.
I love this one.
Wow.
Like who's ever painted a boat?
Not me.
How did they print the bottom of it?
No idea. Maybe hope they're a good swimmer. These were, again, like more handiwork, woven beads, mathematical fractal patterns. You can kind of see a through line, as we look through more work. Glass blowing is another thing they did, like just impressive with how much they went out of their way to learn these things.
It's weird as hell.
So just overall, just love their approach to weaving in human handiwork with this background setup, this like thesis of like math and patterns. This was an instrument they made where I think like
Wow.
two people had to play at the same time. One note would only make a sound if someone else was pressing the next note. So it was like sequential, and they had to take turns playing each note.
That's so cool.
So it translates into like even performance art. Really just blown away by like someone who like started with graphics and math and like went into all these crazy mediums. And then I'm just ending with like a bunch of their work in the gallery space where I sort of first experienced their work. So you kind of get like an overall sense of like this body of work and how that feels in reality.
Yeah, such strong contrast in scale.
Yeah, work is really different when it's really big,
Cool.
That's it.
Yeah, I feel like looking at their work, you really see the tie between language and math. Your brain is constantly looking for patterns, but you see almost like human writing in everything. Like I almost wanted to like try to read it, but there's nothing to be read.
Yeah, like makes you think of how like scripts, got invented or like came up in civilization. Like were they doing math first? Were they doing writing first? Did those two kind of come together at some point?
And I just think it's really remarkable how they kept a very cohesive aesthetic through not only beads, glass, like paints, spray paints, and then the instrument was like the icing on the cake for me. I mean, besides the boat, I almost forgot about the boat. Like just being able to touch all of that is really incredible. I would hesitate to call them a designer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand like the graphic sensibilities, and I think it's valuable to like look at them in that context.
Yeah, they're almost like an artist who like did a little bit of design.
Yeah, it's like you can clearly see it's someone obsessed with their train of thought that the byproducts are like all different mediums. They needed to touch every single one and like see how it would materialize in that particular medium.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, it's the same OCD that a designer has, but like they took a different route with their work.
Yeah, it's like they're on a trajectory and like design bumped into the trajectory.
Today, I'm gonna show you a studio that I've liked for a long time. Traditional technique, but I really like how they evolved into the digital era. Hort. Hort is run primarily by this guy, Ike Koenig. He's an older German gentleman, grew up, before computers. So when he studied design, it was really tactile. Everything was analog. And I think that really speaks and translates a lot into the work he does today, even digitally. Funny looking guy. So their logo is crazy, and I really always, before I even knew about their work, this logo always stuck out to me, how fucked up it is. And if you zoom into the little H, there's like the tiniest overlap possible that's like just noticeable. Something that like looks really messed up, but then I saw once they made a shirt where they like highlight that little tiny overlap, so it's like very intentional. They don't really respect it. They stretch it, they push it in different forms, and they just have this pretty dynamic logo type that really feels punk, over the top. But then you see their work and it's like so buttoned up in some ways and like really follows a lot of rules of typography. So it's just an interesting, juxtaposition to show. This is like a playground for designers. This is like a much more free-flowing type of workspace. This one I wanted to show off is a German like dancing company. The typography, just, really weird combinations of different type choices. They have this custom type with this outline stuff going on. It's like kind of feels dated to me, but then how they lay out the other typography is really creating this nice like asymmetrical balance. I would almost be like uncomfortable attempting to do that, but they commit to stuff so hard and it just looks so good to me. Again, to point out, a lot of the work I'm showing is going to be all black and white to show how much you could do with literally just font choice and layout. So you can see like how simple this looks, but creating that weird indent and off-centered layout creates a cohesion and like a memorability structure where you're not relying on color, you're not relying on these like gimmicks. And I think you could see the thinking of like industrial typesetting where each letter is placed with like such intention. It's not just typed out on the computer. And I think that thinking really translates. I just wanted to bring this one to y'all's attention because a lot of times as designers, people have to work with kind of bad photography. And I think this is an incredible way to just lean into it and use it in such a violation of your layout. Just slap it on top, feather it out, just make it feel really almost printmaking, but clearly digitally done because it's like a crappy digital photo. Something about that energy just feels so like fresh to me, even though it looks bad and the photos are kind of bad. You know, if you don't like the photo, just squish it really small and make it look crazy. There's something so punk about it without, you know, doing that, you know, classic Sex Pistols, like ripped up stuff. Like this is punk in a very controlled way where it's more about the layout and like pure graphic design.
I think the white space also helps in a lot of these pieces just because it gives you like a sense of like things are just floating around in the ether and there's nothing like too precious or intentional about anything.
Yeah, the only thing that's grounded is the M mark with the type.
Exactly, like that is what keeps the consistency, and then you just have this huge canvas of randomness. The negative space is what pulls you in a lot of the time, and people don't understand that psychology.
I feel like it really speaks to the fluidity of dancing.
This is kind of random. They did a pitch to MoMA for like their rebrand. I don't know if it was ever accepted. It's very subtly different than the current MoMA. They just did some very slight typographic fixes to, you know, the balance and the weight. For someone who's trying to do minimalism, like if you're trying to do minimalism, you need to look at the asymmetry and like the simplicity here and how easy it is to achieve really incredible minimal layouts without a lot of content, without a lot of amazing photography. And like you could create something beautiful with very few like raw materials. I love this because how many times is this like a blueprint for like, oh, you're gonna add a style sheet to this, but this is just what it is and it's nice. So this, if you've heard of Hort, might be the work you've seen. They're really big once they started doing a lot of work for Nike, trying to make stuff look really energetic, like really looking at how they're placing each letter. You know, they're using like maybe not even the best photos of the shoes, but they're just, you know, covering over the logo on the top shoe. Like they're not respecting the shoe, they're creating an energy and a vibe.
Yeah, I think I saw this in 2014 or 15 or whenever it came out, and I was like, wow, this is like really cool. And lo and behold, nowadays you see a ton of this like cartoony design language that's like prominent in a lot of Gen Z work.
Totally.
So they were definitely like ahead of their time.
This was the era of like the Mickey Mouse hand being in everything.
This all comes down to like typesetting and understanding how you read something. There's a reason certain letters are bigger and certain letters are smaller, and there's a nice rhythm here that is done, again, with no imagery, but this feels like Nike. This feels like energetic, and it's not even using, like, there's one letter that's italic, maybe. Do you see how small the logo is? Do you think Nike would ever let someone do that if they didn't really trust the, you know, the typography behind the execution? This one I thought was kind of bad, but I just included it. It was like not as good and not as effective, but it was just more, it's interesting how they approach everything. Letter pressing, like how they're choosing, like why do you flip that end? I don't understand that move, but it makes me notice it.
I did hear that a lot of Hort's work is him allowing like interns to go crazy. Energy fresh out of design school and kind of being like unfiltered, and he massaged them into being, you know, reusable and perfect, which I feel like you can kind of see that energy.
But then the commitment and then refinement to that is what makes it next level for me. When you're using a photography like found imagery, you have to put your own spin on it and make it your own style. And I just think that how they use repetition here and layering him in between his face and just like showing the back with the ball repeating, It creates such a nice composition graphically, using found imagery, but making it your own layout, not just using the image and hoping it does the work for you. Negative space, negative space. Look at that. Look at that. If you try to pitch that to like 90% of companies, they're like, we could put 50 more claims about why our product's good here. Like, we're wasting opportunity. But the reason you see this, the reason it stands out is because of that empty space. And then you can just see, you know, carrying this through black and white, very simple typographic decisions, but carrying that through all these layouts to create this harmony and rhythm, not just doing like the same poster size repeated, but playing with scale, playing with dividing the pages. This one was a cool one. It was like an invitation for something in Bergen in 2016, but they really did a lot of applications for it. But just seeing the pairing of different typefaces, really weird decisions like making a lowercase m in assembly. This is just really fucked up in the best possible way. Type sizing here, just asymmetrical layout. You really have to commit to that approach and then find the beauty in these weird, unconventional layouts. And then the little bit of detail of like this R and lowercase m creates a brand system, what you wouldn't normally think of, like where you have, you know, consistent logo, consistent color, like very specific rules. This is carried out by real like old school design sensibility. Look at this layout. Like, how many times have you seen like dense pages of copy, but the way they add the gaps and the space and then like the extra column in the middle just makes that so beautiful to me. It could be a phone book, but it would be awesome. I'd hang it on my wall.
Yeah, you so rarely see type being this small nowadays because everything's designed for the phone, but there's a beauty that's been lost.
You know, why not flip over half the poster and put it upside down and put it on top, you know? Just some interesting stuff here, and like the website, that big gap of negative space, and then this huge dense packed in copy. And just to show some normal merch, they make merch that just looks crazy. To end it up, I wanted to show a little bit more of his art, which I don't love as much as his design, but I feel like it shows more of his like full picture and the ethos of Hort, where it comes from. So, you know, creating these faces out of logo marks, you know, a happy Mickey Mouse or like a little sassy Mickey Mouse. Not something I'd hang on my wall, but, you know, it has some of that punk attitude we're talking about. And I just really like this, where he kind of shows off himself in this reflecting, like, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Like really kind of corny, like dad joke, just really weird. And I feel like this was one of the better pieces of art he made. You know, making poster about postmodernism looking like this kind of has a nice energy to it. And then just to show, you know, dad cringe, he obviously is a fan of Mark Fisher. So, you know, this famous quote, kind of how he feels, but it's this punk attitude. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than imagine the end of capitalism. It's showing he's a literate guy, showing he studied all the theory behind it. Yeah, so that's Hort, bada boom.
I remember Hort being like a big inspiration while we were in school. It was definitely like the craziest studio I've seen up to that point. And then since then, there's been like Studio Mirko Borsch, like all these like studios that are kind of following in their footsteps. He definitely paved the way. I think I dislike his personal work. But
Yeah.
I'm like maybe like the intern slave labor was like part of the formula that I was missing from that.
Yeah, it definitely
But-
gives off like smart dad energy, where it's like, haha.
Yeah, it's kind of like gotcha art. Like I get that's the purpose of it. It's like not about technique and like beauty.
Yeah.
I don't really get it, to be honest. Like, I don't get the personal work at all. But
Yeah, I feel like it's just like narcissism through typography.
yeah.
Like he sells the prints, so I think he's just thinking like, yo, what would these libs buy and hang on their wall?
I don't know if
But
he's
is that
self-aware.
like different than just a Pinterest poster? Like
Yeah.
No, but if you look actually,
an edgy Pinterest.
if you look close, like each letter in this is like
A little bit
typeset
fucked up.
off.
Badly, yeah.
But like, I feel like that's what kind of gives it a little bit of a soul. I feel like, I don't know, it's a vibe. It's a vibe.
It's a
And
vibe. It's a vibe.
He owns it, so respect.
He's a good designer.
Yeah. Not a great artist now.
All right. So the past couple Bing Bongs I showed like very, very crazy expressive work. And today I want to hone in on a studio that I admire more for their philosophy and less for their aesthetic output. This studio is called Linked by Air. So they were a studio founded by Tamara Maletic and Dan Michelson. So in their about page, it just says Linked by Air creates design systems shaped by hybrid environments, digital products, yada, yada. They do branding. They do a little bit of like exhibition work, but what really drew them to me at first was their approach to web design. The first project I ever saw by them was the Yale School of Art graduate program website. It looks ridiculous. It looks kind of like an HTML website from the 90s, like MySpace level coding. But what's super interesting about this, if you read the about page, it says, this website is continuously evolving after many people from disciplines all throughout Yale School of Art and its wider circles. It pretty much gives all the students, alumni, faculty, and staff access to change the website in any way that they want. The CSS of it specifically, so the content is all the same. The containers and the images used are like constantly changing. So anyone has the ability, even a friend of an alumni that gets granted access can go in and like completely fuck up the entire website. Quick overview of like all the different states that this website has looked in from year to year, or not even year to year, it's just constantly changing. It's like a living and breathing website. And something about the simplicity and the philosophy of that harkens back to like what the world of web should have been. Now everything's just a shopping mall. All websites look exactly the same. I really, really admire their approach to kind of just like creating a unique user experience of every single thing they touch, and without care of like how beautiful it looks or how polished or clean it looks. It's more about owning the idea and going at it 100%. So this was another ridiculous like screensaver project they had. They needed to come up with a conceptual screensaver. You're able to resize the browser and the fish would pretty much adapt to that space. So the web browser, it conceptually was a fish tank aquarium. And these fish are just constantly passing by, and you had a 1 in 100 chance to get a rare fish that you see on the bottom here. The fish would also grow and scale depending on how long you had it open. So it was like trying to, in a very brutalist way, like imitate like the life of a fish in an aquarium.
And you know I'd be refreshing that page till I got the rare fish.
Oh no, but you just have to be patient. It comes like every now and then.
Oh,
like
I thought
1 in 100
every
fish.
Oh, so you have
Yeah.
to wait the fish.
Yeah, you just have to wait.
just don't
And
know
the
when.
fish grow as time passes.
It's so dumb, but I want to try it when I go home.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone's like gone and done like digital fishing where they like screenshot like rare fish from
Yeah, this is a website that's like, again, using like a HTML, CSS only coded style. This was a website called 100 Survivors where they collaborated with an artist to send prompts to survivors of breast cancer. They were each able to kind of answer a prompt, and it collected 100 photography samples that all of these different people generated that were victims and survivors. I love this kind of like Craigslist era web design where it's all about the idea and not at all about the flash. Like these photos are so striking and powerful. Just like seeing them all together in this huge catalog that's kind of made invincible by putting it on the internet. It was just really beautiful projects all put together in like a very straight to the point way, no frills. And I think like that, this type of content and subject matter, it should not be like a branded experience. It should just be like a raw human thing.
No, that's so many times like the breast cancer walk, they kind of, I mean, obviously it's for a good cause, but it's designed in a way where it feels almost like a product. And this, like first of all, they didn't make it pink. They made it really respectful and serious. And it's more about looking at these individual people's stories. And there's something about that that really stands out in that space where everything becomes, you know, a campaign or an experience. This is like about the people.
Yeah, like I feel like the through line of all their work is integrity, and that's what I almost respect the most, where it's like if you zoom in here, it says in memory of, they're constantly like updating this to like include the names of people who passed. It's just a very thoughtful project. They were commissioned to make the Whitney Museum of American Art. It was an amazing brand system made by Experimental Jet Set. And they were able to like put in this really crazy responsive system for the navigation. Even when the websites need to be polished and like fully functioning, they always come up with a way to add like an interesting interactive component to it. So if you see here, the W is like, every time you refresh the page, it's like generated in like a different geometry basically. So if you look at the phone as well, like opening the menu, it's like a completely responsive and adapted W, which is like remains true to the branding, like to a T. This was another really interesting museum website where, again, it's like Easter eggs everywhere. Like the top and right side basically are these patterns that are generated based on the weather outside of the museum. So every time you look at the page, it's gonna look different just by that small detail along the border. And that even translated to like the museum's like printed materials as well. This was one of my favorite projects. This is like one of the only branding examples I'm showing. So for the Columbia Graduate School of Architecture, and I forget what the P's stand for, This was a branding project they did based on a donation in 1914 where the school was gifted an enormous like 15-ton granite sphere that was in the center of the campus where people could congregate and like talk and meet and discuss and share ideas. And the sphere acted as a sundial for the campus. So it was like a really integral part of the school. And then when it was removed or taken away, this is kind of like how it lives on. So the branding of the GSAP basically operates as a sundial and changes every time you look at it depending on the time of day. Every time you log onto the website, it looks a little bit different. The typography is like dynamic, but like in a very mathematical and sensible way that is actually useful and like attached to a piece of history.
There's this variable of time that I feel like we don't take advantage of it enough on the web, because you can really just hard code something to pull directly from like time.
Yeah, I love that it's not something you would notice like the first time you visit the site, but then you like look at it 3 hours later and you're like, what the hell? Like, why does it look totally different? And then you put two and two together. It's a tasty idea.
Like, why should websites look the same throughout every single minute of the day?
Exactly. So this was another really ridiculous one-off idea where it was like to show off the Columbia GSAP's like library and just literally putting physical books in a bookshelf in a digital format. Just a really interesting way of browsing books in a catalog. Yeah, they have to make websites that are fully functional and standard, but they always do something a little bit crazy and interesting with the way you experience it. So on the bottom right, they have like, if you click the search bar, it's like enormous and it blurs out everything else in the background to just like really showcase like one feature of the site. And that same site, they wanted to like include different ways to navigate it. So this is like an overview site of the entire program. So what they did was they took a blueprint of the building and you're able to like click into any room inside of the blueprint in order to like learn more about the curriculum and like what is being taught in that specific space, which was super crazy. And then they had another section called the pit in the website where you're able to just click images and it would aggregate every single image used deprived of its context all into like one page. So you can just browse the entire site based on like images and click on the images and see where on the site that came from. So this was like a very experimental way to navigate a website. Finally, I just wanted to go through more quickly, like I just love the aesthetic of like what like every single website they create, it does have this like brutalist, like almost like art gallery medium website, but this is what the web should have been. If we never kind of like dove into the world of like marketing and statistics and like the buy now buttons being on the right side of the page, this is what websites should have been, where each of them are like their own unique little world. It's considered from front end to back end, like the way that the client will interface with the back end informs like how simple and interesting it looks on the front end. So if you just, I'm not going to give context for these, but just showing how like simple and like interesting you can make just through front-end website navigation. Just like really beautiful stuff, all super considered, all like, it's tied more to the way that the interface will work from front end to back end and how it exists as a system than it is considering the whole website in totality. And I think that's the beauty of it, because you almost don't know what the website will look like after you hand it off to the client. The client will determine how it exists. An exhibition for Jay-Z, it was kind of like an archive of all of his content. It's going through just, yeah, really beautiful, simple design. Is that it?
Yes. This really makes me think about what could have been if web wasn't decided on by, you know, committee and a people like scientists figuring out what button layout you're most likely to click to make an extra $10.
Yeah.
It just feels so much more genuine and like tailored to the content itself. Like the content drives the design versus fit your content into this mold. It's just so refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's almost like they built a house each time and like they didn't determine how you do the interiors. What they deliver is like a framework only.
I'm curious, how many of the websites that you guys do, you know, for work are for like e-commerce, or like, do you get projects like this where you can you have the opportunity to design like a cool
just like once
place?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Like it is telling that all of their clients are like, you know, cultural institutions.
Right.
It is a shame that that's the only type of client that's like willing to dive headfirst into this. I mean, I know they get funding, so they have like bigger budgets. They don't need to like make money off of it to
Link by Air
return on
doesn't?
investment. No. Like the museums like they don't need to like like make back the money that they invest into the site. It is a shame that like not all websites look like this, because then all of them would be such a unique experience.
So many websites are just shopping malls, but that is because the majority of web projects are for commerce. And
I mean, I've definitely seen cool commerce websites. It's just like, yeah, if you're trying to maximize conversions, it's like, maybe it's our fault as humans. Like, stop being sheep. Stop like, stop being so predictable.
Like, oh,
everyone should go on their website, on websites, and start like clicking random stuff to like throw off the statistics generators,
So you might have noticed I am wearing For Good Measure merch. Oversized, heavyweight cotton. I love the feel of this shirt. It fits a little big. This is a large. I probably maybe would have got a medium, but it fits nice. It feels quality. Buy them, please buy them.
Oh yeah, join our Discord. Join our members. We got one member. We got to shout Samuel Holler.
Wow.
Thank you, Samuel.
Our first patron.
Yes. We made them as cheap as YouTube would let us, because we just want everyone to get access to this content, but it's a lot of work. We're doing our best to provide the best content possible. So if you care to support us, feel free. If not, no worries.
Yeah,
It's $1 a month, so $12, that's 12 a year. You can buy...
And wise words of Pokemon. What are you, broke boys?
Buy my cookies, bitch.
All right, bye.